I started working as a pizza delivery driver when I was 17. It was supposed to be something temporary, just a way to earn a bit of money and get some experience before figuring out something more serious. At first, it felt easy enough. Drive, drop off food, collect payment, repeat. Most nights were predictable. Same streets, same houses, same regular customers who barely said more than a quick thank you. The job only really changed on weekends, when orders came in from people I didn't recognize and the shifts ran late into the night. That Saturday, everything started normally. It had been raining heavily since early evening, the kind of steady storm that makes everything feel quieter, like the whole town is holding its breath. Business actually got busier because of it. Nobody wanted to go out, so we were constantly sending drivers across town. By around 11:30 p.m., things finally slowed down. I was sitting inside the shop for a rare break, drying off and scrolling through my phone while the older staff talked near the back. I remember thinking I might actually get to leave early for once. Then a new order came in. No one else wanted it, so they handed it to me. It was a delivery to a road I didn't recognize, about 20 minutes away. I didn't think much of it. I just grabbed the box, got into my car, and headed out into the rain. The further I drove, the emptier the roads got. Street lights became rare, then disappeared entirely. The GPS led me down smaller roads until I was surrounded mostly by trees on both sides. Eventually, I turned onto a long driveway. At the end of it was a large, older house sitting deep in the rain. No lights on, no movement, just dark windows reflecting my headlights. I parked and checked the order one more time. Everything matched. But as I reached for the pizza box in the passenger seat, I paused. Something upstairs moved. It was subtle, just a shift in the curtain, but it was enough to tell me someone had been watching me arrive. That wasn't unusual in this job. People often peek out windows before coming down. Still, something about it felt off because I never actually saw their face. I stepped out anyway, holding the pizza under my jacket to protect it from the rain. The moment I got closer to the porch, I noticed something strange. There was already another pizza box sitting there. It wasn't ours. Different branding, different shop, completely soggy, like it had been left out in the rain for a long time. I stopped for a second, trying to make sense of it. I hadn't seen anyone leave, no cars pulling away, nothing. It just sat there like it had been forgotten. I stepped around it and knocked on the door. No answer. I waited. Still nothing. After a minute, I knocked again, louder this time. From inside, I heard something shift. Not footsteps exactly, more like movement that stopped the moment I noticed it. Then silence again. I called the number on the order. It rang. And then, faintly, I heard it ring inside the house. Very close, like it was just behind the door. I froze. There was definitely someone inside. I called again, but nothing changed. No one opened the door. After a few seconds, finally, a voice came from behind it. A woman's voice. But something about it sounded wrong, slightly rough, forced. The front door doesn't work. Come around the side. I hesitated. The rain was getting heavier now, soaking through my jacket. I looked back at my car for a moment, half thinking about just leaving everything there and driving off. But I didn't. Instead, I walked around the side of the house. And that's when things started to feel worse. The side of the house was darker than the front. No porch light, no motion lights, just the rain hitting wood and stone in a steady, heavy rhythm. There was a second door there, but it didn't look right. It was old, almost forgotten, the kind of door that didn't belong to a house people actually used. The wood was worn down, edges slightly swollen from moisture, and there were cobwebs near the frame that hadn't been disturbed in a long time. I stood there for a moment, trying to understand why someone would tell me to come here instead. I called out once. No response. I knocked lightly on the door. Nothing. Just silence. Then I waited. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Still nothing from inside. The rain was getting colder, heavier. My clothes were starting to stick to me, and I could feel that uneasy pressure building in my chest that something wasn't adding up. I pulled out my phone again, ready to call the store and confirm the address, but before I could, I heard it. Not from the door this time, from behind it. That same woman's voice. Just leave it there. It wasn't close to the door anymore. It sounded farther back inside the house, like she had stepped away after speaking. That made no sense. If someone had ordered food, why wouldn't they just open the door? I looked down at the pizza in my hands. The box was starting to soak through at the edges. For a moment, I seriously considered just dropping it and leaving. But then I noticed something else. The house was completely still. No footsteps, no movement, no shadows passing windows, nothing. Yet I had already seen that curtain move upstairs. Something was there, or still was. I took one step back, then another, and that's when I heard it. A faint sound from the side of the house. Not a voice this time, a small scrape, like something shifting against the wall. I turned my head slowly toward the darkness between the house and the trees, and I realized I couldn't see anything clearly anymore. The rain and darkness had swallowed most of the yard. It felt like the space was bigger than it should have been, like there was room for things I couldn't see. My grip tightened on the pizza box without me thinking about it. Another sound came, closer this time. Not inside the house, outside, behind me. That was enough. I didn't wait to confirm anything else. I dropped the pizza on the ground, turned, and ran straight back through the rain toward my car. I didn't look back at the house, not even once. I just ran. When I reached my car, I yanked the door open, slid inside, and locked it immediately. My hands were shaking more than I wanted to admit as I started the engine. For a few seconds, I just sat there, staring at the house through the windshield. Then, slowly, I reversed down the driveway. Halfway back to the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror, and I thought I saw the curtain upstairs move again. But I didn't stop to confirm it. I drove out of there fast. On the way back, I kept trying to convince myself it was just a weird setup. Maybe a prank. Maybe someone messing with delivery drivers. Maybe the house was abandoned and I just imagined the rest. But none of it explained the phone ringing inside the house, or the voice that seemed to come from nowhere, or the second pizza box already sitting there like I wasn't the first one sent to that place. Even now, I can't figure out what that was supposed to be. All I know is this: something was inside that house that night, and it wasn't waiting for food. I used to work as a park ranger in a large, mostly untouched forest area. It wasn't one of those popular national parks people post pictures of online. This place was quieter, deeper, and honestly a little forgotten. Most days, you could walk for hours without seeing another human being. That was part of the job, though. Check trails, maintain campsites, respond if someone got lost or injured. On paper, it sounds peaceful. In reality, it meant long stretches of isolation with only a radio for company. That night, I was finishing up a routine patrol. I had spent most of the afternoon checking a remote campsite deep in the forest. No visitors, no tents, no signs of recent activity, just damp ground and broken branches from the wind. By the time I started heading back, the sun had already dropped behind the trees. The forest changes after dark. Everything feels closer than it should be. I rode my ATV part of the way back, then continued on foot when the trail got too rough. It was slow going, but normal for that area. I reached the ranger lodge just after full darkness. It wasn't much, just a small wooden cabin with basic equipment, a radio unit, and a desk. No neighbors, no road noise, just forest in every direction. A storm rolled in not long after I got back. At first, it was just wind and distant thunder. Then the rain started, steady and heavy against the roof. I remember making coffee, sitting down and going through my notes from the campsite like it was just another shift ending. That's when the radio crackled. I didn't think much of it at first. Radios in that area sometimes picked up static or nearby transmissions. But then a voice came through. Another ranger. He asked if I was at the lodge. I answered, and he went quiet for a moment before asking something that immediately shifted the tone of the night. He asked if I had seen anyone at the campsite I checked earlier. I told him no, not even a trace of a tent. There was a long pause. Too long. Then he told me something had come in. A satellite emergency signal. Not a phone call, not a message, just a single SOS ping from deep in the forest, right near the trail I had just been on. And according to him, I was the closest ranger. That didn't sit right with me, because I hadn't seen anything out there. No lights, no smoke, no movement. Nothing that would suggest a person was stranded. Still, protocol was protocol. He asked me to go check it out. I grabbed my gear without arguing too much. Raincoat, flashlight, headlamp, radio, and a backup battery. I had done enough night rescues to know most of them ended up being false alarms. But something about this one felt off. The storm was getting worse when I left the lodge. The forest looked completely different under heavy rain. Trails blur, landmarks disappear, even familiar paths start to feel wrong when visibility drops. The ranger on the radio gave me coordinates again, roughly 2 miles in, but no exact direction since there had only been a single signal burst. That meant I was basically searching blind. The walk took longer than expected. Every step felt heavier in the mud, and the rain made it hard to even hear my own movement. I kept scanning with my flashlight, sweeping tree lines and trying to stay oriented on the trail. At some point, I remember thinking how strange it was that no other signals had come in. Usually, if someone is lost, there's movement, updates, panic, something. This was just one ping, then silence. That's when I saw him, just off the trail. At first, I thought it was a tree stump or a shadow playing tricks in the rain, but when I moved my light back, it didn't disappear. It was a man, standing still between the trees, soaked completely through, hair hanging down, no jacket, no backpack, nothing that made sense for someone out here in weather like this. I called out to him, telling him I was a ranger. No response. He just stood there, staring in my direction. And that's when I realized something worse. He wasn't holding anything. No gear, no phone, no satellite device. Nothing that could have sent the SOS in the first place. Then, without warning, he ran straight into the forest. He didn't just run. He disappeared into the trees like he knew exactly where to go. For a moment, I stood there trying to process what I had just seen. People get lost out here all the time, but the way he moved didn't feel like someone who was confused or injured. It felt deliberate. My radio crackled again almost immediately. The other ranger's voice came through, asking if I was still with him. I told him I had seen someone, but they ran off into the forest. There was a pause. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. Another SOS ping had just come in. Same area, slightly east of my position. Right where the man had run. That shouldn't have been possible. If he was the one who triggered it, he would need a device, something in his hand or attached to him. But I hadn't seen anything, not even a backpack. Still, I had a responsibility. Someone was either injured, lost, or in serious trouble. Even if it didn't feel right, I couldn't ignore it. I started moving again, slower this time, scanning the forest more carefully. The rain had gotten heavier, and the wind was cutting through the trees in unpredictable bursts. Every shadow looked like movement. Every sound felt closer than it should be. After a few minutes, I saw something on the ground, a small object reflecting my flashlight back at me. I stepped closer and realized it was a satellite messenger device. Bright orange, muddy, partially buried in wet leaves. My first thought was simple. This had to be it. This was the source of the SOS. But the moment I picked it up, something felt wrong again. It was on, but there was no sign of damage or struggle. just dropped there like someone had placed it carefully. Before I could think further, I heard footsteps sprinting through the trees to my right. Fast, close. I barely had time to turn my light in time to see him again. The same man. Only this time, he wasn't running away. He was running directly at me. Not like someone panicking or escaping danger. More like he had chosen a direction and committed to it completely. I barely had time to step aside before he collided with me. He missed cleanly, stumbled forward, and hit the ground hard. For a second, everything went quiet except for the rain. I should have backed away right then, but I didn't. Something about him felt wrong in a way I couldn't immediately explain. He was getting up slowly, like he didn't even feel the fall. His movements were stiff, delayed, almost disconnected from what was happening around him. Then he lifted his head, and I saw his eyes. That was the moment everything in me shifted. They weren't just tired or lost. They looked hollow, focused on nothing and everything at the same time. Like he was aware of me, but not really there in the way a person normally is. I backed up instinctively. He took a step forward, then another. And that was enough. I turned and ran. I didn't think about protocol. I didn't think about the device on the ground. I didn't think about the radio or the storm or anything else. I just ran. Branches whipped at my face. Mud pulled at my boots. The forest felt like it had no trail anymore. It felt like it was swallowing direction. At some point, I tripped hard and slid down a slope, catching myself just before hitting a cluster of rocks. When I got back up, I realized I had lost visual contact with everything behind me. No footsteps, no movement, just rain. I kept going anyway. After what felt like far too long, I finally saw the faint glow of the lodge lights through the trees. That sight alone gave me enough focus to push through the last stretch. I reached the cabin and slammed the door shut behind me, locking it immediately. I stood there for a moment just listening. Only rain. No footsteps, no voices, nothing outside. I reported everything again over the radio. The ranger on the other end told me to stay inside and wait. Backup was being sent, but the storm was making travel difficult. About 10 minutes later, another ranger arrived at the lodge. Then later, law enforcement was called in to assist a full search. They went back out once the weather eased slightly, though it was still raining. They found the satellite messenger device exactly where I had dropped it. But the man was gone. No tracks, no sign of where he went, nothing that explained where he had come from or how he had moved through that terrain without gear. They searched the area for hours. Nothing. No identification ever matched him. No missing persons reports. No registered device tied to any known hiker. It was like he had appeared out of nowhere, triggered an SOS that didn't belong to him, and then vanished back into the forest the moment things got close. I stayed on at the station for a while after that, but something about that night never settled in my mind. Every time the radio crackled after that, I'd feel the same tension in my chest, like I was expecting to hear that voice again. Eventually, I left. I told myself it was just one strange incident in a dangerous environment. But deep down, I never really believed that explanation. Because the part that still doesn't make sense isn't just the man. It's the fact that something out there knew how to call for help without being found.
I was on a long road trip alone, driving across states because of some family situation I didn't really want to get into. It wasn't planned properly. I just packed my things, filled up the tank, and started driving. By the second day, I was already behind schedule. Too many stops, too much time lost to food, gas, and just resting when I probably shouldn't have. So I decided to push through the night and make up the time. That's when things started to feel different. I was somewhere in the middle of the Midwest by then, the kind of place where the roads go straight for miles and the scenery barely changes.
Fields, dark tree lines, empty stretches of highway. Nothing else. When the rain started, it was light at first, barely noticeable. Then it got worse. Within an hour, it turned into a full storm. Wind, heavy rain, flashes of lightning lighting up the road every few seconds. I actually don't mind driving in rain usually, but this was different. At night, with no traffic around, it felt isolating in a way that's hard to explain. Eventually, I saw a rest stop sign and decided to pull over. I figured I'd wait it out a bit before continuing. Maybe the storm would calm down. The place looked normal enough. A small parking area off the highway, a single building with restrooms inside. No other cars, no trucks. Completely empty. That should have been my first warning. But I was tired, so I went inside anyway. The restroom was clean, surprisingly. The whole place actually felt maintained, just unused at the moment. I didn't see a single person working there, but I didn't think much of it. After a short break, I went back to my car and reclined my seat. I told myself I'd rest for maybe 20 minutes. I don't remember falling asleep. What I do remember is waking up suddenly to a flash of lightning so bright it felt like it hit right next to the car. The sound that followed was even worse. The entire car shook. My ears rang for a moment as I sat up, disoriented. I checked the time. Just after midnight. The storm hadn't slowed down at all. If anything, it felt louder now, like it had gotten closer. That's when I noticed something odd. The sound wasn't just rain and thunder anymore. It felt layered, like something else was mixing into it, but I couldn't tell what. I sat still for a moment, trying to focus. Then, I turned slightly in my seat and saw that one of the back doors was open. Not wide open, just slightly ajar, enough for rain to be getting inside. I froze, because I knew I hadn't opened it, and I was certain it wasn't like that when I stopped. I sat there staring at it for a few seconds, trying to convince myself it had to be my mistake. Maybe I didn't lock it properly, maybe I forgot. But even as I thought that, it didn't feel right. I got out of the car slowly and looked around the empty parking lot. No movement, no people, just the storm. I closed the door, locked everything again, and stood there for a moment, trying to calm down. That's when I started thinking maybe I had just left the car unlocked when I went inside earlier. Maybe someone walked by, opened it, checked it, and left. But that didn't explain the timing, or the fact that I hadn't seen a single person since I arrived. Still, I didn't want to stay outside in that weather, so I got back in the car and started the engine. I told myself I'd just drive to the next stop. I pulled back onto the highway, gripping the wheel tighter than usual, trying to shake off the feeling that something was off. But the rest of the drive didn't feel any better. The storm kept getting worse as I went, and the road stayed empty for miles. Then I saw something ahead in the distance. A gas station. It was sitting alone just off the highway, barely lit, surrounded by darkness and rain. It didn't look busy. It didn't even look fully open. But I didn't have many options, so I pulled in. I parked right in front of the gas station and just sat there for a moment, watching the rain hit the windshield. The place looked worse up close. Half the lights were off. The ones that were working flickered in a slow, uneven pattern. The sign outside buzzed faintly, but barely stayed lit long enough to read. It didn't feel abandoned, but it also didn't feel open in any normal sense. Still, I needed a break from driving. I went inside quickly just to check if anyone was there. The store part was empty. Shelves were stocked, but there was no cashier, no movement, no sound except the hum of the refrigerators. I called out once. No answer. That alone should have been enough for me to leave, but the storm outside was getting worse again, and I didn't feel comfortable getting back on the road immediately. So I stayed in my car instead, locked the doors, kept the engine off, just waited. At some point, I must have zoned out a little because I remember snapping back into focus without knowing how much time had passed. That's when I noticed another car. It wasn't there before. Dark color, parked a few spaces away, no headlights on, no interior light, nothing moving inside. I stared at it for a while, trying to figure out if someone had just arrived without me noticing. But I couldn't remember seeing it pull in. The longer I looked at it, the more uneasy I felt. Not because of what it was doing, but because of how still it was. Like it had been parked there with a purpose. Then I noticed movement near the store entrance. A shadow. At first, I thought it might be someone from inside finally coming out, but it didn't move like a normal person heading to a car or the gas pumps. It just hovered near the building edge, partially hidden by the rain and darkness. I reached for my keys, already thinking about leaving. That's when I heard it. A faint sound near the passenger side of my car, like something touching the door handle. I turned my head quickly. There was someone right there, just outside the window, not clearly visible at first, just a shape standing too close for comfort. The moment I moved, it stepped back slightly, disappearing into the darkness behind my vehicle. My heart started pounding. I tried to track where it went, but the rain and the poor lighting made it impossible to see anything clearly. Then came another sound, this time from the back of the car. A hard, dull thump. Not a knock, more like someone pressing or testing the vehicle. I realized immediately this wasn't random. Someone was trying to get in. I fumbled for the headlights, flashing them on and off, trying to see behind me, but the light barely reached past the rain and darkness. And the feeling hit me fully then. I wasn't alone there. Whatever was outside had been watching me since I pulled in. Another thump hit the back of the car, this time stronger. That snapped something in me. I didn't wait to understand it. I just put the car in drive and pulled out fast. As I left the gas station behind, I caught one last glimpse in the rearview mirror. The dark car was still there, but now it didn't look empty. There was something near it, standing just out of clear view, and it didn't move as I drove away. I kept going for hours after that, not stopping until I reached a small town with enough lights and people that I finally felt safe enough to pull over. That's where I checked the back of my car. Scratches, deep marks along the trunk and rear panel. Not random damage. It looked like someone had used something sharp, maybe trying to pry it open. That's when the full weight of it hit me. It wasn't just that someone had followed me. It was that they had been trying different ways to get inside the entire time. Rest stop, gas station, even while I was asleep. I never found out who it was. No report led anywhere, no footage, no explanation. Just empty roads, a storm, and a feeling that I had been watched for far longer than I realized.